Hey, what's up guys? My name is Russell and welcome back to the Arma 3 terrain creation series. This time, we'll be getting our terrain into the actual game of Arma. We'll be skipping over creating a mask image today, purely because I want to just get the map in-game to showcase what it's currently looking like and sort of progress from there. I know generally you would do a mask image first, which is, if you don't know already, a mask image is basically declaring where the textures are going to be. We're just going to have a global texture applied at this current stage, and then in the next part we'll come back to the mask image and we'll make that. Also, if my voice at any point is all a little bit clogged up, I am currently sick, so sorry about that. But I need to get this done, so yeah. Now, this part is going to be a lot longer than all the others, likely, because there's a lot of info that I will be having to go through fairly quickly. So if I'm speeding along, sorry, just feel, you can always turn the video back, play it again, you can always slow it down, I don't know, but hope that I can get the point across. So, a few things that we'll need. Firstly, all of these 4 links will be in the description. Actually, these 3 links will be in the description, as you'll need these 3. Now, first thing we need to do is actually set up our project drive. Not set it up, but just, what would it be? Like, enable it, show it, mount the project drive. That's the word I'm looking for. So, as I've stated, I'm not showing how to set up your project drive in this tutorial. There's a video down below. It's like a minute long, and it will show you how to do it all. It's not that difficult. Load up your Arma 3 tools, click the mount project drive, click yes. I don't know if that shows on the recording. Then you'll scroll down and you'll see a new volume P drive. Mine's a little bit more full since I have a lot of projects going on. But this is where all of your Arma projects will be held. And in our case, this is where we will begin. So first thing we want to do is create a new folder, and this folder will actually be our projects folder, and we'll just call it tutorial map in my case. Now you can call this whatever your location is, whatever you want to name it. Doesn't really matter. Now, next thing we want to do is open this up, create a new folder, call it source. Now this is where we will store our height map, our sat map, our mask map, and our normal map, all of these. And here is where our actual project will be, and also the config file that will be required. So let's add the config files first. And now this is where things get a bit confusing. So make sure in Windows that you are able to edit the extension file here. A lot of people don't know that, but I don't know where that setting is. Might need a quick Google search to just figure that out. Shouldn't be hard, or it should be on the top of your folder window up here somewhere. Now my folder is all custom, so I can't show you. And just name this config.cpp. Change the extension. Good. Now double click this to open. Here's another thing, you will need, well, you can use Notepad default, but I would highly suggest a program such as Notepad++ or Visual Studio Code, as I'm using here. Both are free, just Notepad++ right here, or Visual Studio Code, which is my preference. Now, they aren't required, but they make looking at the config files far easier on the eye, and way easier to access and modify. Now you can do everything in Notepad. I just would highly suggest doing so. Now, you want to go to this website, link down below. This is the official PMC editing wiki for terrains, in this case, which it's not the official Bohemia tools, but it's the closest we can get, hosted by the community. And you just want to copy this fully working example here. Press Ctrl+C a few times and paste that into here. Now this is our config file, and I'm gonna basically run through it real quick. So up here, these are basically saying if you were to put, let's say, yeah, here, draw a taxiway. Normally you would put a 0 there, declaring not true. But in this case, these are just defining if you put false, replace it with a 0, and if you put true, do the opposite of false, which in this case would be 1. Now that's not really required. You could go down here and just make this a 1 or a 0. of course, but it just makes it easier to read, I guess. Now here is CFG patches. Now, any folder inside of your project drive, so here, well, actually, any of these folders, if I go to any one of them, and if they have a CFG patches, that means that this folder will be built into a PBO. That's all that's saying. This could be in any folder. So for example, if you have a folder dedicated to your textures specifically, then if you just put CFG patches, it will be built by Arma into a PBO, and a PBO is what Arma reads to launch. So any folder that has data for your mod needs a CFG patches. Now we go on to the terrain classifications. In this case, CFG worlds list. This is just, it's a bit weird, gets a bit convoluted here. This is just your terrain, like declaring what the world is called in Arma's form. It's really weird, it's hard to explain, but you'll get a hang of it. For example, Stratus's default name and under the Arma's code is just called Stratus. So here we're declaring the default Stratus config. So we're literally copy and pasting that default config. And now we're overriding the Stratus config with our new world. And whoops, didn't even do that. Just held down the space bar on my keyboard. Oh, there we go. Okay, so now we're copy and pasting the Stratus config from the Arma's default resources, and we're literally overriding it. So we're overriding it with basically clearing everything out that makes Stratus Stratus and making it our own. So we have the description, the world name, which is our WRP. We'll explain that later. Your author, this. So you can leave this all basically default, but I'm going to show you how to make it your own now. So first, we obviously want to replace the tutorial to terrain with something like, well, in my case, it is still the tutorial terrain. So I'm literally going to call it, here's another thing. You almost always want to use a prefix for anything you use specifically for your mod, because a lot of naming conventions between modders are usually the same. Like you'll call your textures grass, and then another mod will call their textures grass. And if two textures the exact same name, they won't work and they'll collide with each other and it might overlap. And it's best just to name everything like the first three letters of your name, or maybe the first three letters of your project, or anything in that form. In my case, I'm just going to do my name, so Russ_tutorial map. Now I'm going to replace all of these, and you'll see that it changed all of them. And Notepad++, I think it's the same. It's Control F to do this replace. That's all you need. We'll keep all of this the same. Required add-ons. Arma needs at least one required add-on to work. Description, here we go. So let's just change this to Russell's tutorial map. Now, world name. Now the thing is, our project, for now, I know it isn't standard, but we're just gonna keep everything in one folder layer. So our project is going to be right here, while in a normal case, what a lot of people like to do is make one large folder and then have multiple folders inside of that. So like one for the map, one for the textures, one for the models, so on and so forth. But for now, we're just gonna keep it basic and sort of cut that out. So we're gonna delete these starts. We can delete the slash as well. We don't need that. Just delete all of those. This new road shapefile. So basically in Arma's terrain builder, you can draw out where you want your roads to be. And then export that as a shapefile, and then this is where that's being read from in Arma. And we don't have any roads yet, and I'll do roads in another tutorial next time. Well, not next time, but in a future time. So for now, we're literally just going to cut this out and leave that blank. Now, don't delete this function in full, or else Stratus's roads will show on your map, and you don't want Stratus's roads on your map, of course. These we'll just leave for default for now, as we don't have images for those yet, but I'll show you how to do that later. Actually, we're just going to delete these for now. I know that sounds weird, sort of contradicting myself, but you'll see. Instead of showing our map, it'll show the Stratus logo, but we can always change this out later. It's just for now. Just do what I do right there. Sure. Author, set your own name, set your online name, set this to whatever. I'll just set this to my name, Russell Welch. And then everything else should be good. Now, center position, this one. Now, remember, our map is 8 by 8, 8 by 8 kilometers. So the center of that would be 4 by 4 kilometers. And in Arma, you always want to use integers, multiples of 512. So the closest number that we would get is 4096. So we're just going to put 4096 on both. I don't know anything that actually uses the center position. It's just useful to keep it accurate, I guess. And then everything else here. One more thing I forgot. Sorry. We actually want to remove this Rust_tutorial map because our folder name is not following that convention. So save that, close it, good. So one more thing before we can continue. This is a little insert afterwards, as you might have noticed by the time, but you need to go over to the third link that I sent you, and you need to right click this image or just open it, right click, save this image, put it inside your P drive over here, scroll down, and then you want to name this, I think it's map legend. Yes, this one right here. So map, and then capital L legend, no spaces, file, save, good. This is required to be able, for Arma to be able to tell what sort of colors they are. It's really weird. This is what it reads from. That's all you need. And yeah, it should be good. It's not color map, yeah. All right, cool. And then go on to the next step. Sorry, this is an insert from later on. Good. Now we want to go to our source folder, and then we actually want to go over to our tutorial series folder. So this is where I'm saving everything from a few parts ago. So our sat map is right here. Here's our height map. Yep, right in here. And then so on and so forth. So good. And we're actually going to move this, the PNG file, into the source folder. Nice. And we're going to rename this to satmap. And then later on in the episode, we're going to convert this to a BMP format, because a BMP format loads far faster in Terrain Builder. I don't know why, it just does. And that should be all we need in here. Cool. I'm going to close Arma 3 Tools. Then I'm going to load up World Creator. And we're actually going to load up our project from last time. So if you still have that, good. I think I said save it last time. Yeah. So, yeah. Sorry. All right. Load project. I know I'm talking really fast in this episode. I'm sort of breezing over things really quickly, but there's so much stuff I need to get done in this episode. So I'm just trying to get it through. Give it a second to load. I hope I just loaded the right project. I did. Cool. So now here's our map, and this is what we're getting into Arma right now. Now you want to click on this export button here. You want to click on raw and go down to XYZ format. And then you want to flip the Y, because World Creator for some reason has the opposite Y-axis. I don't know why. And then once that's all declared, click export. Go over to your any folder. I would actually suggest going over to your project folder. So in my case, tutorial series. Now I would just name this heightmap.xyz. Click save. Now give that a second to export. All right, now that did take a while, but not that long, a few minutes. So now that that's exported into here, our XYZ file, we go up, we should be able to see it right here. Cool. Now the second thing we want to export is our normal map. Now a normal map is not required for Arma, but it does make your map look significantly better. And the best way to do this, actually, is to go over to your area, click on the default area. So this is where we imported our height map, if you remember. And we're going to actually drag down the level step here, and you'll notice our map is getting a little bit grainier, and in this case, it's actually getting more detail onto it. And we're sort of going to bring that down to maybe a 6. Sorry. Bring this down to 6, I think would be good. Nice. And then we're going to go to surface, make this up to 1 meter on precision. Give it a second. Then we're going to click on the export button. Select our terrain height map. Select terrain normal map. And then export this as a PNG. And I believe you still need to flip Y. If not, I'll correct it in a minute. But go over your tutorial series. Name this as normal map. Click save. And let this go. Alright, now that that's been exported, we're actually going to leave World Creator. We're not going to save it because we made no significant changes. Alright, and then we're going to bring this up, and then we should have our normal map here. And that looks proper, I believe, right? Yep, good. And this is basically how lighting works in Arma. It's really weird. I would suggest looking up normal maps if you care to see it at all, but it's basically how light reflects off of the terrain, and it looks pretty good. Of course, if you added that level step where it makes it a bit more detail, of course it does, if it'll load. There we go. Yeah, but looks nice. Alright, now we're going to load up our Photoshop or GIMP or whatever program that you're using, and you're actually going to want to open up your normal map. So drag this over here. And you're going to want to make sure that this is firstly 8K, good. And then File, Save As, go down to your P drive, go to your project, so tutorial map, go to the source folder that we talked about earlier, and after you save this as a BMP file, and you want to make this 24-bit, make sure that's 24, click Save, and then give this a second to load. And that should be all good. Then also, we want to convert our sat map from earlier. So we're going to go to source, view this sat map file, drag this up, let that load, make sure that this is the right size, 8K, good, file, save as, and make this also a BMP. Oh, now you'll notice in this one, we don't have that option. This is because we are, I believe, yeah, we're at 16 bits per channel, and you want to lower this down to 8 bits per channel. This might decrease quality by the slightest bit, but I've never noticed it, and also it's the standard for everything. So just do that, and then make this a BMP, make sure it's sat map, click File, Save, 24-bit, and OK. Good. Now we can close Photoshop, and we can actually delete this PNG file. Make sure you have a backup. I do in my tutorial series folder. So now we have 2 of the 3 required. Oh, well, we're missing one more, which is our mask image, but we'll do that in a little bit. So now we want to load up our L3DT from before that I talked about in the first part that we needed. Now L3DT, we won't be using it for the general, what most people use it for, which is making the height maps, but rather just converting it into an ASC file. And you can use the XYZ file that we exported. However, XYZ files generally take longer to load, and they're a bit, I would not suggest. ASC is the most standard that you can get. So you want to go over to your tutorial series, find the XYZ file, heightmap.xyz, open this. Alright, now that that has loaded in, you want to go to Operations, Height Field, and change the horizontal scale. Now, whatever your precision is in World Creator that we exported as, now remember, we exported the height map as a 4096 by 4096, but our map size is 8 by 8. So 4096 times 2 is 8 by 8. So we are going to set this at 2, and this will also be what our cell size is in Arma. So remember this number, and if you've been following directly and setting your map sizes to the same as mine, it is 2. So press OK. It's whatever your World Creator precision is. Because basically you have to imagine that every pixel is 1 meter in Arma. So between every pixel on this image here, that's declaring 1 meter between that. But now we're declaring there's 2 meters between every pixel. So that's what we want. Now right click, export, make this an ASC file. You want to click on file name, go down to your P drive, click on your tutorial map, source, and name this height map. Cool. Now while that's saving, there is one more thing that we want to do, and that is our mask image. So we're gonna load up Photoshop again. Should have done this earlier, but it's all good. Give this a second. And then I'll drag this over. We want to click on File, New. Make this roughly make this 8192. So whatever your map size is, which is in our case 8192 by 8192, and we're gonna set the background contents to black. Make sure these are all the same for you. 72 pixels. This. Make sure this is not saying inches, or because I think that's the default Photoshop. Make sure that's pixels, and then click Create. And now that we have this pure black image, that's it. We're literally gonna click File, Save, and we're gonna make this a BMP file and call this mask. So in a normal Arma scenario, every texture on this image, so if this were to be rather give it a second. Photoshop's thinking. Every color on this image here would be its own sort of texture on the map. But we're only going to set one texture for now, and then we'll do mask next part. So now we have these 4 files in our source, and that's all we need. So we're going to create a new text file, text document, and we're going to call this layers.cpp. Save it. Good. Then we're going to open up back over to here. Sorry, I just named that CPP. It is layers.cfg. My fault. And we're literally going to copy all of this, and we're going to paste it into here. Good. Now we only have one texture right now, so we're gonna actually delete these. If it doesn't make sense, just give me a second. You're gonna want to clear out all of these. You're gonna want to clear out these bottom 2 as well. So let me quickly go through this. So basically, this is saying this is the texture's name. This is declaring where the texture actually is. This is declaring where the texture's RV mat is. And if an RV mat basically is a combination of filters onto a texture or other images that will give it like an effect, such as like reflections or depth or anything like that. I'll go over that in a future part, but for now you just need to know that this is sort of like a master class of the texture declaring certain details of it. And then we go down to the legend area, and this is where our layer is, tag_grass. This is where this is declared. And then in our mask image, remember it's fully black, and the RGB code for black is 000, and full white is 255, 255, 255. So if we set this to 000, that's saying that any pixel in here, which is black, will be this texture. So now that we know that, let's actually set this up to our own textures. So firstly, I'm gonna rename this tag_grass to Rus_ground. Replace all. And now we want to set these folders to the same as ours. Now look, it's looking for a data folder, and we haven't created that yet. So we're going to go back to our tutorial map. We're going to make a new folder called data. Now this is the part where you do need your own textures, but the thing is, I'm not going to show you how to make textures just yet. So in the description below, I'll have a download link for the textures which I'll be using, just so you can sort of build it on your own. I'm going to be copying the textures from my own project. So I'm literally going to copy these 3, the Co, Nopex, and RV mat. Control C a few times, go to tutorial map, data, and paste that in here. And I understand that this is a bit weird because we're sort of just going off of files that we don't know exist yet. Basically, these are just texture files. And I'll show you how to make texture files in a future episode if people want to see it. But for now, all you need to know that this is what we need. So now I'm going to rename this to whatever we named it here. So we named it Rus_ground. And I'm going to name this Rus_ground_co. Now the suffixes of textures they don't need to be, but you really should follow the naming conventions. If you don't know the Arma's naming conventions, you can easily do a Google search. But basically, a co is a color texture, or it's what you would generally see on the ground. A Nopex texture is a mix between a normal map and a parallax map to sort of give reflections and also add depth to the texture. That's why it's called a nopex. So we're going to call this rust_ground_nopex. Because they all have standards in this form. And in the RV map, we're just going to call rust_ground.rvmap. Let's open this up. Now I'm opening the RV map, and this is basically where you get a sense of how the RV map works. You have stage 1 with this original texture, and we're adding the nopex texture on top of the color to give it that depth. And then you have all these different forms of here, like specular and ambient, diffuse. So you can edit this individual image without having to edit it manually. And then also add multiple things to it, like normal maps and such. So we're gonna leave this all as default, besides the path directory. So get your path directory to this folder, go to here. We're actually going to replace that and replace this value map /data, because that's my other map that I'm working on. Then you're going to copy the names of these, and you're going to replace it with these ones. So this one is the _co. We're copying the co to the co. And then we're going to copy the this one to the nopex, and we're just going to delete the co. There we go. So now our RV map is done. It's set up. It's good to work. Close your RV map. Go back to your layers. Now remember, this material, this is looking for the RV map. So we're going to copy this directory. Here's one thing that I've sort of just remembered, that I've been doing this whole time subconsciously. Sorry. Never include the p/ in your folder directories. Always copy from the map base directory. Sorry about that. My fault. I didn't really say that, but I've sort of just been doing it all along. It's just sort of default for me now. So make sure this is reading to that RV map file, and in the texture, this is going to read to the co file. So we're going to copy this as well. Well, I think I'm wrong there. Sorry, because this used to reach out to a CA file, and that's not used anymore. So I don't think you actually need to reach out for that. That should be good from there, because our RV map is also already reaching out for the co file. So that should be fine. Yeah. Sorry about that. So now we have our layers.cfg done and ready. This is reading out to the textures properly. Nice. We have all of the different map types that we need. Good. And we have all of our textures in here. So now we can actually load up Terrain Builder and set this all up. So let's go over to our tools, Arma 3 tools, launch Terrain Builder. Give this a second. And now the first thing about Arma Terrain Builder, you want to click map frame, add a map frame. Now keep everything on default here. Don't change anything, but press OK. Now this, you actually first want to click cancel, and don't edit that at all. Click file, import terrains, and we're going to go over to the map file, source, and import the ASC. Alright, so now this is our actual height map in Terrain Builder. Now right click terrain coordinates and properties, and make sure that easting is at 200,000. You always want this. 1, 2, 3. Good. Width and height should be 8K. Nice. Now you're going to want to zoom out a little. So scroll wheel and then right mouse to move and zoom back in over to our actual height field. So there we go. File, import, and this time we're going to do satellite imagery. So we're going to choose a sat map, click open. This shouldn't take that long since it's a BMP. If this was any other file format like a PNG, this could take a long time. And now we'll see that that's imported somewhere. Now it sort of offsets you every time, which is a bit annoying. Right click. Now see, this one didn't go to the correct position. So 200,000. And then set this northing to 0. Press OK. And now if we click up here, I think this one's sat map. Yes, it is. You'll see our sat map. And these should align perfectly with not offset at all. File, import, satellite normal image, and we're going to select the normal map. Press OK. Alright, so just offset us again. Come back down to here. Right click, make this 200,000, and 0. Now, if you don't know why I'm doing this 200,000 0, I don't either. Basically, it's required to be at this position for Arma to work, for as far as I know. It might not be required, but it's just what everyone does, and it makes sense. I don't think other positions really work. I don't know why, but yeah. So just do that. So, makes it easy. So 200,000 and 0. Press OK. Zoom out. Find our map again. Now this one we won't actually be able to see because it's just pure black. But it is lined up properly because it covers the whole image. And normal map is good. And now we're gonna go quickly save it because Terrain Builder is known to crash very, very frequently. So we're gonna go into our tutorial map and we're gonna save this right here. I'm just gonna call it tutorial map. Press save. Good. Now we're going to double click our map frame here. We're going to rename this to tutorial map. Output root folders. This is where basically the map decides where it wants to output everything. So you want to go over to your, where is this? This PC, sorry. P drive. Go down to your tutorial map, press on source, and then press OK. And then click create subfolders. I just messed up. I just messed up there. Sorry, my fault. Don't do what I just did. Don't press source, press tutorial map. That happens. Press create for subfolders, and that'll create a few folders. I'm gonna quickly go in here and then delete all that. Yeah, that was my fault. I messed up. Yeah, sorry. Now make your E scene 200,000. 1, 2, 3. And make your northing 0. Make sure this is all good. Nice. Go to samples. Now cell size, we talked about earlier how I said the cell size was whatever we multiply the height map to. And in our case, it was by 2. And then our height map size, if you remember, was 4 by 4K. So 4096. And this terrain size down here should equal whatever your total terrain size is, which is 8K. And then these, because we exported it as an 8K resolution, we just want to set this to 1. That'll get there. And then this one, you could basically leave as default, but then the texture layer, you want this to be as close to 40 as possible. So between 32 and 64, 32 is closer. So set that to there. Go to processing, go to layers config file, and we're going to click this. And remember that layers file that we created earlier in the tutorial map? Press source, layers CFG. Open that. Now you want to click rebuild terrain. Press yes. Give that a second. Now here we're going to export actually all 3 of these. And we're going to click on the 5 materials plus cell plus satellite normal map because we added a normal map, so that means we have to use that one. Now we're not going to use 6 meters per cell because we're obviously using normal map. Sorry, repeating myself. And that should be all good. And we're not going to export the converted to PAA files. If you don't know, Arma only reads PAA files. That's why those textures that I was showing you earlier were .paa. We're not going to convert it inside of Terrain Builder yet because it's a bit slower than what I'll show you later on. So click generate layers and then give this some time. This can take a very long time dependent on your map. So I will talk to you then. All right, now that's done. Press the OK button. Good. File, export, WRP, and we're actually going to put this into our tutorial map here. Now, if you remember, if we go back into our tutorial map, go to config, you'll remember that the map name, world name, is this WRP right here. So we're going to copy this name. Remember, I added the Rust underscore as a prefix. You would, in a normal case, I guess, add the prefix also to the folder, but we're just going to avoid that for now. I would suggest it if you're going to do a more official map, but, you know, you can always add it later. It's not that difficult to re-change the names. File, save, good, exported. Now we're done with Terrain Builder. We should be, at least. save the project, and then close it. And there we go. We should have everything. I'm just gonna scan through one more time. This looks all good. Now I did mess up earlier with this layers.cfg because I didn't save the file. I edited it. Make sure you do save. You might have noticed a cut a second there ago and an insert way before that because we gotta save it. But yeah, that should be all we need. And it looks good. So we're gonna close everything. We're gonna double click our PBO project or search it. And if you remember, I put the link, and the link for a PBO project is down below. It does require a few dependencies, so if it doesn't load and it gives you an error, make sure you download the dependencies as well. So, output mod folder. Now this could be anywhere on your computer. This is where the output is. So I have a certain folder in my documents called mods. I'm gonna create a new folder. I'm gonna call it at, now I think you always have to add the @ sign. I'm not for sure, I'm pretty sure you do. I'm gonna call it tutorial map. Click into it, select the folder. Now source folder, this is where our actual map is. So go to project here, tutorial map, select folder. Make sure this is full build, go to setup, make sure this is Arma 3. These should be all default. You don't need to edit any of these. Do use date stamps and PBO. Do rebuild add-ons. You don't need to use the bin 64. I don't know if that actually works. I've never used it. And also make sure that the W warnings or errors is unchecked. And then you press OK. And then you press crunch. And this will convert all those PNG files that we just built into PAAs. And also, this will build the map into a mod, and we will be able to launch it inside of Arma. So I will see you when this is done. All right, and it's done. I think that took roughly 13 minutes or so. And now that this is done, we can go to Steam, go to your library, load up Arma 3. Give this a second. Go over to your mod section. Click on local mod, go down to wherever you just built that folder, and in my case it was in documents and it was in mods at Valley Map, and no, not Valley Map, tutorial map, and just click select folder, click load mod, and then we should be good to go. Be able to close that, yeah, and should be able to just click play. I don't know if the recording will switch the game view instantly. It should. I have it on my other monitor. Also, I'm recording bugs at times, and in Arma it goes like 2 FPS, except in reality it runs at like 60. But let's hope the recording doesn't fuck up. Alright, now that we're in game, click on your editor. I hope my recording isn't lagging as bad as it's showing me over there. Click on your map and it'll say the name right there. Click on continue. And we should have a map. And here we go. And just like that, we have a real world terrain in Arma. Now, if you're making a map strictly for aerial combat and other forms of that, this would work perfectly. There's no detail on the ground, but it's very large scale, no objects, perfect for aerial combat. But I highly doubt that everyone here is looking to just fly some jets around. So in the future parts, we'll be going over how to actually detail this map, how to make it better, how to make it more solid, how to get it to the releasing stage of a map. But in the current stage, we have textures on the ground that we added from the mask map, and we should be able to walk around and look at it in its full glory. Let me just get like a prowler. Yeah. And then if we press play game, you should be driver of this vehicle. And there we go. So it's a very large map, 8 by 8 kilometers. You have plenty of free space. I'd say for an aerial map and flying around in aerial combat, this would actually be perfect, because I doubt many times you actually need a full-on scale detailed, but we'll go over all the other such in the future. And also textures, you'll notice currently there's this one texture on the ground, and this will be everywhere because we just made a solid black image. So we'll be changing that in the future episodes. So if you enjoyed this, please leave a like, please subscribe, share it, do whatever you want. And if at any point it's confusing or didn't make any sense, feel free to leave a comment or contact me on my Discord, which is also located below. I'm free to help at all times. And yeah, so thank you for following along. Hope to see you in the future parts, as we are certainly not done yet. So my name is Russell, and I'll see you in the next one.